Okay, first of all, welcome to our office. Super excited to have you all here. I'm Aref. This is my amazing colleague, Karin. And today we're going to talk about a lot of transparency we've heard, and we're going to give you kind of the transparent and honest story of Jobylon and how we kind of ended up here and how we created what we call our happiness culture. Very short about us. We've done many things in the HR tech space, as I'll tell you in the story. Today, what we do, we offer an applicant tracking system, an ATS, primarily to larger companies all around the world. And this is something we've been doing since 2016, 2017. But I'm not going to focus too much on that, but I'll tell you a little bit more about our story. So we started 2011. We've always had the same kind of vision and idea to help organizations better attract talent and hiring them in a better and more efficient way. You can do this in many, many ways because this is a very broad kind of vision in that sense. In 2011, our belief was that this would be a job board. So our first product was a job board with a twist. We were 13 people, very sales focused, didn't know much about product. We thought we had the best idea in the world. Within 2 years, we realized we don't. We're really good at selling, but we're creating zero value. So within literally 24 hours, these 13 people became 4. That was a strange, weird day. So now we went from a very sales-driven company to a very product hype-driven company. So now our biggest goal was like, forget money, we want to be on cool news sites, and we want to be the top startups, 30 under 25 on all of these lists. So we created another thing. It was called Jobylon Bounty. The idea was that you would connect on Facebook and your friends would be connected with jobs. You would recommend them to a job. If they get the job, you get the bounty. So we would make everyone into a headhunter. And we got a lot of buzz and we got on all of these lists and all of that. But again, we created zero value. So 4 became 2. So now it's survival mode. We are literally sitting in the corner of another company. They genuinely think we're like the IT department since they always ask us about the printer. And we're working on the next big thing. And we shifted kind of our culture in a way. We started listening in a different way in terms of what do actually customers want. And also maybe challenging them. And that kind of led us into this realization that, okay, no one seems to be happy with their ATS, or the job ad hasn't changed in 200 years. It's gone from offline to online. There is a possibility here. So long story short, that's kind of when we, in 2014, started thinking about the idea. 2016, we launched what Jobylon is today in a very simple way. So it took us 2 years where we finally managed to grow the company to 5 people. For us, now we were a team. And if you noticed, Elina here came back. She was our first boomerang. We've had 2 boomerangs. This is the first time we started talking about happiness, because why would she come back? Because everything just, she left at rock bottom of the company, had a great job, good career, got married, got a son, and she wanted to come back. Shaky, crazy story, salary not as good, all of the above. But the thing was, the word happiness came back. I was more happy, and for us, happiness is not walking around smiling and laughing, even though that's part of it. But happiness for us is, how do you create a culture where everyone can feel relevant and everyone have impact and you're part of a bigger thing in that sense. So that really formed kind of our culture as it is today. And it's not something, we learned that from a lot of failures. And I think you need to do that. I think it's hard to kind of sit one day and workshop your values or anything, and then it becomes perfect. So anyway, fast forward to today. We are 50 happy Jobylonians all over the world, which is super fun. If it's one thing I'm by far most proud of, it's this team, not the product. The product is something that changes all the time. We've done 3 products so far. God knows what we're doing in 3 years, though the product is working for the clients in the room. Thank you. But what did we learn? I have a lot of animations. I have to go back and forth. I'll do this. Our learnings during these first years was, they kind of sound obvious, but one, if you iterate enough number of times, at one point you're going to make it. So the question is kind of like when do you stop? When are you not supposed to do it again? And I remember we had a fantastic team and a fantastic board that was always, one more time. Let's try one more time. And I kept asking them, why are you guys putting in funds in this? Because all the money you're giving us, we're just burning, and then it's not working. And their answer was very simple. Someone will make it. Why not us? And that just kind of simplified the whole journey. The second thing was that the majority of all companies and startups we saw around us would just cease to exist. That's just the name of the game. So the realization for us was, what's the point of all of this and of working so hard as we do if we're not having fun while we're doing it, if we're not doing it with people that we actually enjoy working with, if we're not doing something valuable? That became, again, our whole kind of happiness culture. That's the point of all of this, basically. Along the way, our values have always kind of been our North Star, and Karin will talk more about them shortly. I remember when we defined these, kind of the first week of the company, I didn't get it. I was like, why are we doing values? We're 3 people, let's just get to work. I'm really glad that we did that. I'm really glad today that we did that. And I think, Sarah, you were mentioning it, values is just, it's just words, right? No one has no one has be mean. Everyone has good values, but it's all about what do they mean to the company, to the people. How do we live our values? So this is something we talk about often, and you'll hear that from Karin also, about how we set our performance reviews and salaries and goals, and everything goes back to discussing what is passion for people. What does that even mean? And it has a definition for us in the company, and that definition will change with time. But before I hand it over to Karin, I was about to say Cookie, because that's what we call her. I wanted to share some of the happiness initiatives we run. And these are all results from dialogues from people in the team and weird, quirky stuff we do that we're proud of. One of them is something we call happiness tax. A portion of everything we sell goes to a fund. We call it happiness tax. Every Friday, we're in this room and people call in, and anyone can pitch anything they want as long as it has the budget within this fund. And if 50% say yes, we got to do it. And it's been everything from buying a coffee machine to a pinball game to donating to a cause to a safari in South Africa. And it's super fun when you empower people to kind of waste money, which was the idea. People became more cash conscious. They're like, no, let's save the money. We can go to New York and da-da-da-da. So it's always like this Dragon's Den feeling here every Friday when someone is pitching these. So happiness tax is one. Another one is our protege program. We like to brand everything with our J's. This is a mentorship program for not only future leaders but future specialists, and so every year we match a number of individuals in the company with executives outside of the company. So it's a mentor program where they get to meet other people. They work with them throughout a year, and we meet 4 times a year, all of us, and then we have kind of a big presentation or something by the end of the year. And the last one I'll share with you is our Jcation, which is kind of like our workcation. So this is the first one. When we were 15, we went to Prague. Because we are a very remote company, we do want to meet up sometimes. So once a year, it's completely optional. We fly everyone into one place. We work for a week together. We hang out. We cook dinners. We do whatever you do at home. But it's business as usual. But we do like a hackathon. We do workshops. So this was the first time we got this castle in Prague, which was epic. Then COVID hit. We didn't do anything for 3 years. Then we went to South Africa. And this year, I can't tell you where we're going because no one knows. We're announcing it next week. So you can get back to me then. But these are just some of the things we do that no one really thought of. It just came up by discussing and having an open, transparent culture. Because if you think about it, it is weird when someone says like, hey, so a % of everything we sell, let's just spend it on something. Like, it doesn't make sense, but when you start discussing it, it becomes a part of your culture, and now it's happiness tax. But okay, so over to kind of more the science of all of this and not the weird things.
Big words say science, but thank you, Aref, for talking about our journey so far and how our happiness culture has been the foundation for our growth basically. And I thought we would just jump into talking a bit more about like how we've been leveraging on our happiness culture in terms of performance. So how do you drive performance? And for us, it's, you can use the word happiness, but for us it boils down to two words. It's creating meaningfulness and context. So a couple of weeks ago, I watched this documentary about happiness. Some of you might have heard about this documentary before. It was a Harvard University study that looked at the key behind happiness. We all want to know that, right? Looking at this picture here, you could just look at it. I mean, for me, it was true happiness being on a safari with my Jobylon colleagues, if it was just simple as that. But jokes aside, what they actually found in this study was one thing that demonstrated importance, and that was meaningfulness and meaningful relationships in particular. And I want to highlight this because if you create meaningful relationships within your teams and also across teams, you will create accountability, and each and every individual in your team will feel that their work actually matters. Not only for them, they don't go up in the morning, start working just because they need to reach their KPIs and their goals. They do that and they thrive in their work because they feel meaningful for their colleagues that they hold near and dear. And if we look back, we all know that, I think, sitting in this room, before money was a hedonistic treadmill, today that is replaced by meaningfulness. And not meaningfulness in terms of we need to save the world from climate change. Of course, that's amazing as well, but more meaningfulness on a micro level. How can I find a company where I actually can see the results and the work I'm doing and feel meaningful? And it is actually the #1 reason why employees leave their employers today. So that's why I think it's super important to talk about this. And one thing, I think Sarah talked about it a bit, that we all can, I think, improve on is training our managers. Because meaningfulness, to feel that genuinely, we need leadership. We need leaders that give recognition. And it's easy to say, I recognize my employees, I give them positive feedback. But for me, you can see it as 3 different levels. If I take Aref as an example, the first level is very plain, very simple. I say to Aref, good job. I don't know if that gives you feeling meaningfulness 100%. So if you take it up 1 level, it's saying, Aref, good job. I saw you put a lot of time and effort in that. I recognize his hard work, but that is not enough. We need to push our managers to that 3rd level, and that is all about putting it into a context. Can Aref actually see his work, and can he trace back where does his work actually, how does that contribute to the goals? So then I would say to Aref, good job. I know you put a lot of time and effort, sweat and tears, but thanks to your good job, now, for example, McDonald's is one of our lighthouse customers, and thanks to that, Jobylon can now grow outside the Nordics. So I think those 3 levels, at least for me, those are good to have in mind, to create meaningfulness, and that will make Aref feel that his job actually matters in the end. Another thing that we've done at Jobylon to create meaningfulness is something we call context over control. I think many of you in this room have been working in teams, organizations that's been growing rapidly. What happens? We're human beings. The most common thing you do when that happens is that, okay, let's sit down, let's set these different processes, let's try to control this mess. And the opposite is setting the context, because what happens when you apply too much control? That will lead to less trust. It will lead to less ownership. And again, back to meaningfulness. Your employees will feel less meaningfulness, less engaged. And what happens? Your top performers are the first one to leave. And what happens when you leave or lose your top performers, you're left with low or average performers, and you apply even more control. So it's a negative spiral right there. So instead, make sure you set a clear context in terms of course, like what is the strategy for our company? What are our objectives in the team? I think you all have that. But what I want to highlight, and the most important thing is on an individual level, because it all starts there. What are the behaviors? Sarah talked about that before as well. Our culture. Okay, we have passion for business product. What is that? What does that mean in terms of actual behaviors? So what we did was that we boiled down our behaviors into actual concrete behaviors. And we did that to be able to set the context. So our employees know, okay, what behaviors at Jobylon are required for me? And we actually use this not only when we recruit, when we promote our Protege mentorship program, we use it there as well. We assess the employees based on these behaviors. And we even set our salaries based on behaviors. So with that being said, a couple of key takeaways. So as you could tell, talking about our happiness culture, in other words, at Jobylon, for us that means creating meaningfulness and meaningful interpersonal relationships. It could be, for example, a J-cation that we do every year. That is an activity that helps us create that togetherness and meaningfulness across our teams. And also put the behaviors in front. Of course, like Jean talked about, we need to measure our outcomes, but it all starts with the behaviors. So it doesn't matter what you do if you cannot measure that. And if you're hesitant, like walking away from this seminar, like, okay, do we have a clear context at our company? You can actually just easily look at, okay, for example, Trace in your sales team, can she trace back her job to the goals set in your company? And the most important part, I would say, and that is, does she know what type of behaviors that is required from her? So it doesn't need to be that hard when we talk about purpose, meaningfulness. It sounds big, it sounds fluffy, but I think, yeah, again, it's easy to get stuck looking at only outcome, raising someone's salary instead of working with purpose. And it doesn't need to be that hard, you just need to focus on the right things, basically. Thank you.